Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to today's webinar, Opening China, Advancing Technology within our webinar series, Landing Softly in China. Welcome everyone from Europe and from China. I would like to draw your attention to this webinar's agenda, say a couple of words about our experts, and announce the next webinars before I pass the floor to our experts. So today, we will present one of our newest soft landing zone, ENRICH in China's newest soft landing zone, Messe Nanjing. We have Oscar Prat van Thiel, who will be presenting the services offered by Messe Nanjing as a soft landing zone for ENRICH in China, offered to startups, to SMEs, to tech companies, and he will announce also the virtual 2020 Innovation Fair. So welcome, Oscar, and thank you for being with us today. And then we have Rami Blachman from China-Israel Innovation Acceleration. He will draw insights and give us insights about successful innovation collaboration between Israel and China. Welcome also Rami Blachman to our webinar. We will, at the end of the webinar, have a Q&A session where all your questions, which you will kindly write on in the system, we will address them to today's speakers. And yeah, I will say a couple of words about the experts. So my name is Elli Stepanovic. I am a senior project manager at the Austrian Research Promotion Agency, FFG. FFG is partner in the ENRICH in China Horizon 2020 project, and we are in charge of trainings and the webinars that are offered. So our two experts today, Oscar Prat van Thiel, he is Director of Innovation, Education and Conferences in Nanjing, Stuttgart, Joint Exhibition Limited, and he has been based in China for the past 14 years. Throughout this period, he has founded several companies in the fields of electric mobility and international trade and consulting. And in recent years, he has also supported governmental institutions, including the European Commission and several Chinese provincial, municipal and district level authorities. Then we have Rami Blachman. He is founder of China-Israel Innovation Acceleration. He is a US-Israeli technology entrepreneur and venture capitalist. He's based in Shanghai and Tel Aviv with a distinctive comprehension of the challenges and unique business culture in China. And his company is working closely with Israel technology companies in pursuing a China strategy and commercializing in the Chinese market. And before I pass the floor to our two experts, I would like to draw your attention to our next webinars in April and May. On 16th of April, we will have, together with our sister projects, ENRICH in Brazil and ENRICH in USA, a webinar on how to pitch a product or how to pitch a service. The registration is already possible online. We provided also the link, so if you go online to our homepage, you can already register. Already is good. It is tomorrow, so please do so if you're interested. And next week on 21st of April, we will have another webinar out of the webinar series Landing Softly in China with the topic The Rise of Artificial Intelligence-Driven Software. So we will present another soft landing zone of ENRICH in China in this webinar, services and how this soft landing zone can support you. And on the 29th of April, we have one webinar about genetic testing technology on COVID-19. April has been a pretty busy month for providing webinars about the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, and we will also continue in May to provide to you webinars about COVID. And the first in May will be a call for application for the Global Additive Manufacturing Application Innovation Competition. And also on 26th of May, we have a webinar within the series Ask the Expert about advice giving to European companies doing business in China. So keep tuned and keep connected with us. We will shortly also announce other webinars in May. So it is May will also be a very busy webinar month, giving you a lot of opportunities to participate. And last but not least, I would like to draw your attention to some open calls and news that we have online on our homepage. It is about a COVID-19 response call, about financial investment opportunities offered by Steinbeis. It is, so to say, a matchmaking call between investors and innovative companies having already mature solutions dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. Another open call is the ATEC China Challenge, an innovation contest, so to say, in the field of artificial intelligence, cyberspace, and biotechnology, with application date the 30th of April. So if you're interested, please go to our homepage and you can find more information, and you can also find a link to the contact person if you're interested in these calls. And last but not least, our regular news about COVID-19, which are now very frequent. We give information on research funding calls, on innovation challenges, and on the latest news, also on our news section on our homepage. Before I pass the floor now to Oscar, I would also like to say a couple of words about our evaluation. We have a webinar evaluation which will be sent to you, or let's say provided to you after the webinar, so you will be able to give us your feedback and your ideas on further topics which you would like to hear in our next webinars. So please take the opportunity and fill in this evaluation feedback form, and in a couple of days, if you don't have time after the webinar, we will send you an email also giving you the possibility to fill in this evaluation form. So that's all from my side. I would like now to give the floor to our first expert, Oscar Prat van Thiel. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Elli, for the introduction. We're very honored to be able to speak here in the ENRICH platform online. And we're, of course, very honored to have been selected and allowed to become a representative in Nanjing of ENRICH. Please pass on to the next page. All right. Okay. This is a picture of our venue over here, and I will explain a bit more detail later. The introduction about myself, thank you very much. Elli, you've already done. Indeed, I've been in China for about 14 years already, myself acting as entrepreneur, and in recent years also working for government programs, Chinese government, EU institution programs, and most recently the past 4 years working for the exhibition company of Stuttgart and Baden-Württemberg, their affiliate in Nanjing, and basically developing new concepts of exhibitions, conferences, especially in the fields of innovation, which has led to working very closely with startups and technology companies in the past few years. Rami has also been introduced by Elli. We're very happy also that he is with us because we are working very closely also, not just with Europe, but also with other countries, with Israel. Of course, Israel is one of the leading technology centers in the world, although it's a small country in terms of size. It's very large in terms of capabilities and know-how. And well, Rami has a lot of experience, and he will be able to introduce himself more deeply, as also Elli has done. Right, so allow me to introduce first of all Nanjing Stuttgart exhibition company. We're a joint venture, as said, between Messe Stuttgart and the Nanjing Exhibition Center. Our main activities are management of this venue and also of organizing exhibitions and conferences. We've been founded in 2011 and we're located in the Central Business District and Olympic District of Nanjing. For those who maybe are not so clear about Nanjing, Nanjing is a provincial capital in China of Jiangsu province, and Jiangsu has the highest GDP per inhabitant. It's traditionally always been the breadbasket of China. Right, so our focus in our activities are multiple. We are cross-industry. We do events in advanced manufacturing, automotive, very much areas that are where our Stuttgart and Baden-Württemberg is traditionally strong in. Therefore, indeed, advanced manufacturing, automotive, vocational education, but also other elements. And as said in the previous years, we've been focusing more and more on finding novel solutions to support SMEs and startups. Hello, yes. So I'm not sure if I'm online here. Yes, I think I am back online.
We can hear you, yes.
Yeah, okay, very good. Yes, the connectivity sometimes. So are we still on industry focus page? Now we're down to services. Perfect, okay. But now I'm muted. Okay, unmuted. Is this okay now? Can you still hear me?
Yes, yes, Oscar.
Okay, very good, very good. Thank you. So basically, yes, I'll go directly to this. Our unique selling points are basically, as far as innovation and so innovative and technology, SMEs and startups are concerned, basically are of providing, okay, here services, yes. So basically we provide events, conferences. So we are not a soft landing zone in the sense, in the traditional sense. On the video here, hello everyone. I'll take this out. There we go. All right, services, right. So we do not provide soft landing space directly, although it's always is possible. We have more than enough space here, but generally we will refer companies to other incubators and co-working spaces, of which there is a large abundance here in Nanjing. We will specialize more on the soft side of the business, I would say, of using our experience in exhibitions and conferences and our network in China, especially in Nanjing and Jiangsu province, to connect, find partners, clients, potential finance for companies wishing to develop a China strategy. And in the previous years, now of course it's more difficult, but in previous years this has included the possibility to travel to China, a certain amount of expenses paid, thanks to the connections amongst others that we also have with government institutions here that generously finance such things. Of course, now due to coronavirus, this is much more difficult to do, but we will be finding the equivalent ways of supporting startups and technology companies online so that they can continue their business in China. Right. Okay, let's see the next page. Yeah, Marianne, maybe you can pass to the next page, please. Thank you. So indeed, yes, we have a team. It's an experienced team working in investing in the VCs with past experience in this. So we know what it's like. We know what it is to have investment requirements. We know what it is to present to VCs. We've been working with tech companies, startups. Many of us have been that ourselves, founders, entrepreneurs. Therefore, we do have a pretty quick grasp on the essentials of what the business needs are of foreign participants in general as a company, and specifically of what things they could need specifically in China. And in order indeed to realistically check the possibilities on the ground, of what are the possibilities of connecting to corporates, research institutes, government offices, etc. Next page. Okay. Okay, examples. Well, yeah, we have several examples. We've been working with various startups in the e-mobility business, also with startups in the clean tech business, and also with other partners, such as I was mentioning, with Rami, for example. We've had CIIA. We've had mixed results. It's not always successful results, but we do help the startups to connect, to find the right partners. And we have to be very realistic. It's difficult to do business in China. It's difficult to find the right people. Therefore, we do encourage that first of all, participate in these online events, and first of all, develop a good China strategy before taking the step to come to China. Next page, please. Okay. There's a bit of a lag, as you see, so maybe Mariana, if you can move straight to perhaps to our most specific event that we have now in the next month of Innovation Fair with the Nanjing Tech Week. Okay, maybe the next slide. So indeed, for example, with CIIA, where we successfully invited a dozen of Israeli high-tech companies through CIIA, through Rami's support, and the successful site is that we created quite a lot of links for them, and also there's possibilities of governmental links of setting up specific acceleration centers, not just for Europeans, but also for other places and other countries, and of course these things do take a bit of time. They have to be presented at the right moment. And so here for 2020, the third Innovation Fair, indeed, this is the purpose here is to introduce for all of you listeners, for technology companies, for startups, and also most recently, it's not here, but also there is a growing interest also for design, industrial design participants to participate online to this event. The specific dates will be exactly announced, but we're actually going to be having several ongoing events on different industry and country themes between the 20th of May and the 25th of June. In order to coincide China and the European timetables, they will be taking place between 9 a.m. and 12:30 a.m. Central European time. Right, so organizers are Nanjing Stuttgart Joint Exhibition Center, ourselves, and also the European Chamber of Commerce. We also have the European Union International Urban Cooperation Program that is participating. It's basically city-to-city and region-to-region cooperation. China-Israel Innovation Acceleration, and of course, we're very happy to have ENRICH also within this platform as a supporter. Right, so the industry scope, indeed. So the point of this event for our European and our foreign participants is, number one, it's a conference to get the pulse of China. Secondly, so we have several high-level speakers that we will see later. Secondly, it's an opportunity to present to investors and corporate audience. And it's also an opportunity then to have face-to-face online meetings. So we will curate based on your application profile. We will curate specific face-to-face meetings with potential investors, clients, or partners, depending on your needs, your stated needs. And at the end of the event, we will supply each participant with a China Fit assessment report. It may enable you to evaluate or reevaluate your China entry strategy. And the industry scopes are those that you see here: semiconductors, artificial intelligence, automotive, etc. And we will be including also industrial design. As I said before, there's an increasing interest for this. Right, so here you have some examples of some of the speakers we've had. So the first phase is a conference. We've had pretty high-level speakers in the past, including the mayor of Nanjing, including the ambassador in China of the European Union, several regional representatives. This is from the government side, but also from the corporate side. We've had Alibaba, we've had Tencent participating, Ford Motor Research Engineering. They are actually based in Nanjing. The BASF Venture Capital Department, head of China. BASF is based in Nanjing. They have a very large, one of their main production facilities here. Bosch Siemens Household, one of the leading household application companies, also based here with their R&D also based in Nanjing. Dassault Systems, which is a French company, a spin-off from the aeronautic, and they are focused on processes and IT systems for companies. Tencent all have a presence here in Nanjing, and so it's quite a good opportunity to speak to these corporates. And for government institutions, it's an opportunity to connect here at whatever the appropriate level is required, whether it be at the municipal level, district level, industry zone levels, or in the different commissions, science and technology, commerce bureaus. This is basically where we will be happy to assist to create these online meetings, as well as having the opportunity to present to these profiles and meet them basically online. Okay. Well, we are nearly done from my side over here. I hope that when we pass on to Israel, I hope the connection from Tel Aviv has less lag. So anyway. So from here, from our side, so as said, for the tech companies and startups, you have the opportunity to meet with VCs, funds, multinationals in China, tech corporates, research institutes, incubators, accelerators, and from government entities, as already said. So we can pass on to the next slide. All right, exactly. And so this is the last slide. We welcome any participants to scan this QR code or to click this the URL in order to apply. Within the application, there is quite a detailed description of the information that we would require in order to connect you as best as possible to relevant parties based on your requirements. And well, we welcome everybody to participate and look forward to your questions later on. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Oscar.
Thank you, Elli. My pleasure.
So we pass the floor to Rami to present his company and his experiences, and we will come to the Q&A afterwards because there are already several questions for Oscar, but we will deal with that in the Q&A. So the floor is yours, Rami.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Am I heard?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So first of all, thank you, Elli, for the introduction to ENRICH. A fascinating program. I would love to learn much more about it. And Oscar, my friend, very nice to be in this forum together. Thank you all for inviting me. And thank you, Mariana, for being the admin person, so adroitly managing the technical issues here. So I would like to take this time, the 20 minutes or so, I guess, that we have here, to share some of our experiences as far as foreign technology companies actually landing in China. As Oscar had spoken to before, this is a very challenging task. And we have the, I guess, the case study from Israel, which, in my opinion, is a very special case in point for commercializing of technology companies, foreign technology companies in China. A few words about myself. I am a tech entrepreneur. I think that's my DNA. And also, I've worked as a venture capitalist. My background is US and Israel. And I've been working and living in China for over 11 years. So 4 years in Hangzhou, 2.5+ years in Shanghai. And much of that time has been spent on working either with Chinese groups, technology groups, cities. We've worked with Nanjing and other cities, with investment and business groups looking to foreign technology companies and for ways to help them land and launch in the Chinese market, and also from the perspective of these foreign tech companies, startups, which is a very general term. It could mean anything from, you know, 2 people with a PowerPoint presentation and some ideas to Uber, before it went public, was also considered a startup. So it's a very broad term, but basically means a tech company that's growing very, very quickly and is financed by VC or by angel investors before it goes public. So this experience, I think, is telling, and there's a lot we can learn from it. Let me say a few words about Israel. I'm right now in Tel Aviv, and Israel, we know, sometimes is dubbed the startup nation, and I guess for good reasons in many ways, because it's, I'll just throw some statistics at you a little bit. And so Israel in 2019, which was the last normal year before this epidemic hit everyone and just brought everything to a screeching halt. In 2019, in Israel, there was $8.3 billion in VC investment, which made it the highest per capita VC investment place in the world, more per capita VC investment than anywhere after California. In fact, it's the second or the first. I'm not sure, I didn't see the latest statistics, but very high number of deals also, something like, you know, 3,000 deals. As I said, $8.3 billion. There have been over 20 financing rounds of over 100 million. companies like Innovis, which we actually hosted in Nanjing last year, raised 132 million, and so on and so forth. Let me pull out maybe one or two other interesting statistics. AI, let me say something about AI investments. There were 200 deals in AI companies, artificial intelligence companies, totaling $3.7 billion out of Israel. So, you know, these are a few words also about the Israeli ecosystem. It's very closely intertwined to Silicon Valley. It feeds from it. You know, all of the capital comes from there, and the people are trained by best practices there and so on. And so you see over around 7,000 Israeli startups that are registered on Startup Nation Central. And I invite, you know, I have no affiliation to them, but it's just a wonderful free resource, Startup Nation Central, where you can search Israeli companies and VC funds, and it's all free. And it's very up to date, very accurate. And you can see about 6,500 registered companies in all sectors that are relevant to technology. And so these companies are all geared and oriented towards the US market for the most part. They will, of course, they have offices in Europe and in Asia and Pacific, but really they define themselves, and their mindset and their training and everything comes from Silicon Valley. And I think, you know, when we look in the context of China, wanting to attract these foreign talents and these, you know, these startups to land in China, we have to understand how they operate in their, you know, in their US orientation, and how that needs to be revised and customized in some ways for the Chinese market, which we know to be very, very different. So our experience has been to work with companies in industries and in sectors that are relevant to the Chinese market. And Oscar mentioned some of these sectors. They are, of course, AI is a very broad term. AI is more of a horizontal definition of technology, and then you have the different verticals. So, you know, mobility, smart mobility, for example, is something is very important, is very large and major sector in China. And you have smart industry, and you know, anything from agri-tech to clean tech and so on. And of course, digital health now is of key importance, because there's, you know, it became front and center due to the coronavirus, and there's a great deal of effort and you know, more investment going into this space right now, with companies providing, first of all, looking for immunization and vaccination for this disease, but also all kinds of digital AI-driven solutions to handle and to contain this. So, you know, some of the things that we've learned in the past, I guess 2 or 3 years, which is, as long as China has become a real alternative for foreign technology companies, we've learned many things. First thing I would say is that I think this is true also for European companies, although they are probably different in some ways from Israeli technology companies, in the sense that they have a home market, whereas in Israel there is no home market. It's very small. It's basically a place, a breeding ground for startups. And then what they do is they, you know, the model that has worked really, really well for Israeli startup companies is to set up and build up their R&D in Israel, and then have the management and sales and product and other functions, US, Europe, and wherever else. And that has worked very well. European startups, I think, is a little different situation, but in terms of their challenges in China, I would say that they're quite similar. Israeli startups have been looking to China, mostly sitting on the sideline. The reason is that there are many, the challenges are maybe quite obvious, but there are many of them, many obstacles. And the main thing for, or the biggest risk, I would say, for a startup company is to lose its focus. So to waste time and to not being completely focused on the target and on the goals that have been set for it. So they have, VC firms behind these startups. An early stage seed round today is pretty large. It could be $1 to $3 million, even 5 seed. A round is 7, 8, 10, $15 million. And you have startups that have raised C round or D round of 50 million, 100 million, and so on. And so they have these VC funds blowing at the back of their necks, pushing them hard to focus. And China is a question mark. So everybody knows that it's a big market. And everybody understands that, in some sectors, it's not to be ignored. You have to be there to be a player. But then these startups, they cannot afford to go out and try things out. They need to, it's sort of ironic because a startup by definition is out there taking a big risk. But on the other hand, in some ways, they're also conservative. It is an irony because the VCs, push them to do things that are tried and true. So they know their beaten track, they know that the direction and the game, the platform is the US market, whereas China is unknown. There are many uncertainties, and they say, okay, let's take a look at this before we take the plunge. This is the backdrop. This is kind of the mindset. However, we do see a few companies that we have hosted in Nanjing last year and others coming to China, such as Innoviz, RB Robotics, Kimi, and these are a bunch of companies in the robotics, in the smart mobility, these sectors that have actually set up an office in China. Some of them in Beijing, some of them in Shanghai, and they're making real efforts to penetrate this market. Whereas in the US market, the rules of the game, so to speak, are quite clear. You know what it takes, you know what the next steps are. You can look at the players. If you have a customer base, you can look them up. You know what who the people are. You can see what their resume is. So the whole market is more transparent and they can relate to it. Whereas in China, for foreigners, this is very hard to do. The transparency is not as quite the way it is in the West, and it's hard to deal with. So, there's no tried and true model for success, so to speak. And that's what they're dealing with. This is what the companies are looking at when they look to the Chinese market. So the advantages, they ask themselves, what is the purpose? Why do we want to land in China? Why do we want to look at this market? What are the advantages there? So first thing, okay, so am I going through the slides, Ariana, or you are?
I will change them for you. You can just say next slide and I'll thank you.
Okay. Please go on to the next one. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. I'm speaking, a little bit maybe out of context with the presentation, just to touch the points that I think are of interest. So our experience has been that the main challenge of the technology companies is to commercialize in the Chinese market. So how do you get in front of a customer? How do you, if you're an earlier stage startup, how do you validate your technology? If you're a later stage company, how do you get into an actual commercial project? It has been the experience of numerous, I think, startups in the past that they were looking to raise capital in the Chinese market from Chinese investors, but that has not been successful for the most part for different reasons. And in fact, that the China-Israel Innovation Accelerator, which is a platform that is focused on being a landing pad and a launch pad, particularly for Israeli startups into the Chinese market, we have been shifting the focus or remaining focused on commercialization. Can you move to the next one, please? Okay. The goal at the end of the day for the startups, as I'd mentioned in my background, is how do you most quickly and efficiently land and get in front of a potential customer? And how do you localize the technology? This is very important because a tech product that was built initially for the American market doesn't just work in the Chinese market. You need to localize it. And it's not just translating the screens, it's much more than that. So that's a a very significant challenge, and that's something we've been spending a lot of time thinking about, and some of the cooperation that we've done in the past with Oscar. Can you move on to the next, please? And to the next. To the next slide, please. To the next, please. Please to the next slide if there is one. And still to the next. I want to get to the main points, please. Okay, okay. Yeah, so let me go over the issues again that these the startups that typically we believe that the startups that are best suited for the Chinese market are those that have raised capital already in their own ecosystem. In Israel, it's the Israeli ecosystem. So these are companies that have raised at least a seed round of a few $1 million and upwards of that. So that their main concern is not to get money from Chinese investors for reasons that can be discussed, but that's, we believe not a good way of starting out. So these companies have their own capital, and they will then, want to land at the place where the ability to connect and to get in front of customers is the quickest. And so the landing pads and the launch pads that we are building up are very important, because these are the places where they can go in front of some of these customers that Oscar mentioned, for example, the Tencents and the Alibabas and the Siemens Bosch and the multinationals and these companies that are the potential customers. They can be matched directly with them under the auspices of a local government, Jiani, for example. And that way they don't risk losing focus, as I was saying earlier, and spending a lot of time and energy in trying to search the broad, the huge, the vast Chinese market, and lose time and spend their resources in an inefficient way. We want to make that very, very efficient. So they will land, they will localize their product, they will be matched together. If it's a, some kind of an AI for smart city, for example, then a district like Jianye can allocate, a certain section of the city for a pilot project and bring in a company, a customer. It could be Alibaba, or it could be Siemens Bosch, or any other company that's a part of this program. And the Israeli tech company, the startup, will be the technology provider, and that's how they will run a first pilot project or a commercial project, and that reduces the risk. That's the way we think that commercialization in China can actually work. The next slide, please. How much time do I still have, Mariana?
I would say that you have around 5 minutes.
Okay.
Is it okay?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
Okay. The next one, please. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the target sectors. We are, as China Innovation Accelerator, let me pull out some of these names. We are the go-to people in Israel for different organizations and meetups. For example, the Israel Robotics Meetup, which is a place where robotics companies from Israel come together. We are regular speakers about China and so on, and helping companies think what it takes to go in the direction of the Chinese market. High Road Center is a urban tech incubator, and we work with them also on a regular basis, as well as Drive TLV. Drive TLV, as is implied in the name, is a smart mobility incubator. There's also Tech Aviv, which is the Founders Club. It's a community of startup founders that have raised at least $1 million, and they have regular events showcasing many of the startups, as well as VC firms and other key players. And on a regular basis, we provide a Chinese perspective, which is not heard quite as much these days. Maybe to conclude, I will share some of my thoughts about the current situation and how it will play out in terms of the relationship between the US and China, both of them being major technology powerhouses. It seems to me like as we emerge, at least China emerges out of the COVID-19 crisis, seems to me like it will gain in strength. I don't want to speak about general geopolitics, but just in terms of the technology and which country, the bilateral relationships between these two countries. It is my opinion that China will gain in strength. So it will become a more dominant player, I think, especially for foreign startups. Because, I think China is coming out of this stronger in different aspects. It will be harder to ignore for many companies. And they will realize that banking and putting all of their eggs in one basket into the American basket is not necessarily the right thing to do. Because, we see the situation, unfortunately, in the United States right now. It's taking them much longer. And the epidemic is hitting the US very, in a bad way. And we'll see how long it takes to emerge out of it. And so I think technology companies, when they look at the two major playing fields in the world today, they will come to the realization that it's very important to have a strong foothold in the Chinese market, more so than in the past. That is my opinion. So that means we will, our role will be more important, if you may, in helping bring this about, to make it happen, help this happen with these foreign startups now to actually implement something in the Chinese market. That is my opinion of the situation, and I think that brings my talk today to an end. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rami, for sharing your experiences. And yeah, I like the idea of focusing our strengths in collaborating more with Chinese companies, and also, as you said, spreading the risk a little bit. And yeah, coming to the questions of the participants, we have 4 questions for Oscar. Before we come to the questions for Rami, there is one question to the presentation. What you mentioned when you were talking about the USP, your unique selling point. What is a boutique and curated matchmaking?
So this is the question for me, right?
Yes,
Elli.
Oscar. Yes.
Yes, indeed. But what we mean by that is quite clear. We often see there's a lot of talk about matchmaking often, and often you will have systems, you log on and you kind of see who's there. And but what we often see is that this is not necessarily, in our experience as event organizers, that this is not very efficient, because precisely and especially when you're coming into a new market, perhaps you do not have you have some idea of who you want to meet, but it's difficult to pinpoint who it is you want to meet. And this is where our experience, being local here, having experience in setting up companies, in developing business concepts, in getting customers, this is where we can perhaps often support in selecting appropriate and most efficient counterparts to meet. And this is what we mean by curated.
Mm-hmm. I see.
Thank you for the question. It's a very good question.
Thank you. So there are then 2 questions that are a little bit related in my point of view. So what would be in your eyes a good China strategy? What is your opinion? What is the key besides culture? And is there a good strategy for preparing for visiting fairs and to get out the most out of it? Okay,
again, another very good question. I think the answer will be it depends. It depends on your situation. As Rami was pointing out quite correctly, it depends, first of all, on your maturity, which is often measured by your financial situation. Well, not always the case, because you have a lot of companies with a lot of money and we wonder what they're doing with it. But and then again, there's others with not so much financing that are very advanced and very mature. So it will depend on your situation. Every company is very specific, but in any case, with regards to events and exhibitions, this has traditionally always been a very safe way to start, because for relatively little investment, you can have a first foothold, and through these kind of events, you can start meeting with potential counterparts, partners, clients, investors, etc., whatever it is that you need. In the past, this was done physically, coming to China, and this will now have to be done virtually, as we're doing with this webinar, and as we are also converting our own events to online in order to make these connections virtually. From an exhibition point of view, one of the conclusions that we see is very often, you spend 3 days in an exhibition, and you, of course, there's many advantages. The vibe, you're with people. It's never possible to completely replace the personal contact. We are evolved monkeys after all. We're all human beings, and we need the personal contact. But to be honest, when you, after 3 days, you maybe have 200 name cards. Out of these 200 name cards, there will be 10 that you will be contacting to the same day, right? there will be maybe 20 that you will be contacting within a week, and the others are maybe, will be more or less interesting. And so what we believe that very much the essential part can, in theory, be done also online. In any case, the connection can be made with a little bit of help in terms of curation, linking to the previous question.
Okay, thank you very much. And one last question for you, Oscar. Do you also consult about exit strategies in combination with entry strategies?
Exit in terms of exiting the market, or in terms of exiting as a startup, in terms of selling out, basically. There are some cases, of course, where there are China failures and you have to leave China. These cases happen a lot, to be honest, and must be said. That has to be taken into consideration before entering China. One must always consider the worst case scenario. With regards to exit strategies, well, this is precisely the reason why we work with partners such as Rami and the CIIA, who have a very deep experience in venture capital and in actually the strategy of how you exit successfully, either going IPO or selling your shares or other combinations. So indeed, yes, we also provide advice in this sense.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And then I have two questions for Rami. One is rather a comment and a question in combination. The European Union was not named as a tech powerhouse. How come? How is your view on the European Union as
Yes, thank you for the question. I didn't mean to demean anyone by sort of highlighting the US and China.
No.
But when we look at in terms of EU, when you look at in terms of VC, let's say, allocation, it's rather small for the size of EU as an economy, of course, right? And UK is different from Germany, and Germany is different from France. You can't really generalize for a tech company looking to scale up quickly. Europe is, of course, very important. In the mobility sector, you have to go to Munich because that's where BMW is. And if you're in smart manufacturing, you have to go to France because some of the most important, core manufacturing companies are in France and Italy, for that matter. But as a ecosystem for startups, Europe is punching below its weight, I think. When you compare what's happening in the US, almost $100 billion per year in 2019. We're not talking about 2020. 2019, $100 billion per year in VC. That's not including Masayoshi Son and the Vision Fund in SoftBank, which is kind of spreading its investments around the world. But I don't know, maybe a third or half or so are in the US. I haven't seen the exact figures. In China in 2019, reached almost also $100 billion VC, or not just VC, but startups raising capital. And Europe has been much smaller than this. So in many ways, Europe is not, there are the exceptions, but overall, a place for startups to grow quickly, and VCs looking at this as a playing field for high growth and exit. That's, at the end of the day, that's the most important thing, for not always for the entrepreneurs, for the startup founders, but certainly so for the venture capital funds, because they need to recycle their funds. They need to raise the next fund. They need to make an exit. That's the name of the game for them. And so that's where US and China are the two dominant players.
Thank you. We see your point. Yes. And a last question for you. There is one participant. He says that he has nearly 15 years of experience in trading with Chinese partners, and that the market is a very turbulent one, and prices have to be kept low. And his challenge is that he has changing partners all the time, nearly every year. and that brings a high level of risk, of course, and lowers sustainability. And in the tech field, the opposite is needed. So how to manage this changing of partners in the middle of projects, and how to address this issue? Which experiences did you make in this sense?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Is he talking about trade, import, export, or talking about technology transfers and technology?
I assume trading. He says trading with Chinese partners, so
Okay.
that's maybe a kind of.
I'm not sure I understand the question. Can you repeat it, or maybe phrase it differently? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he says that the market is very turbulent, and that the prices have to be kept low, and that he needs to change partners nearly every year in these projects or in clients. I assume here partners. I assume in projects here, in research projects maybe, and if you had the same experience in this field, or how to, let's say, how to have trustworthy partners and assure here sustainability and assure long-term relationships, maybe in this sense.
Okay, I think I understand the question. So I think the observation is true that the Chinese market is hyper competitive. In many ways, it's much more competitive than Western markets that are more established, more mature. So the Chinese market, because it's also a developing market, it's not considered, quote unquote, developed market, and it's big. And the Chinese consumers love to try new technologies, and new products and so on, and they can just as quickly drop a brand and pick up a new brand. I think we see that. So that makes for a very, very challenging market. One thing I've noticed in my experiences working with Chinese tech companies that were looking into a foreign strategy is that at least a year and a half or 2 years ago, I think now it's changing because the market is maturing. They, on the one hand, they were sometimes less than 100% upfront or transparent with their goals, and with their current situation of the company. So they would oversell their situation, so to speak. They would play up, the number of customers in the pipeline and not be 100% accurate. And that's something that cannot happen, for example, in Silicon Valley. You have to be super accurate. You have to say things exactly as they are. You can play them up. You can be a salesperson, in terms of selling up what you're doing, but you cannot be caught being, overselling yourself. That's a no-no. You cannot do that. Where in China, at least 2 years ago, that was the case. It was all over the place happening. But I think that is happening less and less now. So the market is very competitive. And also something else that you see in the Chinese market in terms of technology, and maybe in other also consumer products possibly, is that technologies that are not, that let's say are half-baked, things that are not completely ready for market are thrown into the market. They just take the plunge and go inside, because if they wait too long, if they wait to bring it up to 90%, being baked 90% or close to 100%, they're going to,
it's too late then.
Too late by then.
Yeah.
And that you cannot do, for example, in many Western markets. You have to be fully prepared. That's one of the most basic things you learn in, in any MBA program, that you have to be very prepared and learn, study the market and prepare your product and so on and so forth. And in the Chinese market, you can't work that way. Forget it. By the time, you lose out, other people will be out there and they'll churn and new companies evolve. That's the situation that you have. If you want to be successful in the Chinese market, you have to play by these rules. That's one of the localization aspects that is maybe psychological, as business aspects, has many, many different aspects. But you have to think differently. And that's something that's very hard for, you know, especially American, European trained entrepreneurs, when they jump into the Chinese market, they find that very hard to deal with. I hope that answers the question to some extent.
Yes, definitely, definitely. So you say a good preparation, a good market research is definitely needed beforehand. Being in a mature stage, having good already good connections and an existing network in China, so to be well prepared to enter the market.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Having
I'll just
good
say.
partners.
Yes, having good partners is easier said than done, right?
Yeah,
Everybody
definitely.
knows, but it's really hard. One thing, I'll just give a tip about this. Many companies that are entering China for the first time, they will find maybe a potential partner, maybe that speaks good English or has been, you know, has experience in the West and in China, and they sort of fall into this person's arms and they get married from a business standpoint. And then, but that is not necessarily the right thing to do. You know, you want to keep your independence. Maybe the first person that comes along is not your ideal partner, the first company. It seems like it, but then you're going to, you know, you want to keep your independence and learn as you go along. I think that's something very, very important to keep in mind as you go into China.
Thank you very much. I think we answered all the questions that arose here and that were posed. Thank you very, very much for sharing your experiences, Oscar and Rami, and for being our expert speakers today. Hopefully in the future we will collaborate again and provide some other webinars maybe or some other services. And yeah, good luck for the current situation and for the future. And to all the participants, thank you also for being with us and for listening. And the presentations will be provided on our homepage, so you can also take them with you and have a quiet read over them. Yeah, thank you also Mariana for our setting up the technical part and supporting us in this webinar. Yeah, from my side, I'm also done. Take the 2 minutes also to fill in the questionnaire that you will be sent, and give us also ideas on which topics we should cover in the next webinars. Thank you everyone for participating. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Thank you very much.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.